Hello and welcome. You're watching Newsx with me, Devika Devan. The moment of the SCO Summit was the meet and greet between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Russian President Vladimir Putin. The image of, in fact, the three world leaders, including the host Xi Jinping, has now made headlines across the world. Top Trump aides like Navarro and Bessent have reacted, which means that the news of the meeting has reached the White House. How exactly is America reacting and the world reacting? We first listen into some of those reactions and then I take you through how global media is reporting on these developments.
I think at the end of the day, India is the most populous democracy in the world. Their values are much closer to ours than to China's, than to Russia's.
I got to ask you, what do you think about what's going on with India? Donald Trump said that the first deal that he was going to make was with India. I'm best friends with Modi. And then he just started taking credit for resolving the India-Pakistan war, which is a very big, sensitive topic for India, saying you did not do that. Stop taking credit.
At the expense of the Indian people, we need that to stop.
Gosh.
Yeah, and we'll be.
Oh my gosh. Oh God. Oh my gosh. This is freaking embarrassing. This is freaking embarrassing. When does this end?
It was a shame to see Modi getting in bed as the leader of the biggest democracy in the world with the two biggest authoritarian dictators in the world, in Putin and Xi Jinping. That doesn't make any sense. I'm not sure what he's thinking, particularly since India has been in a Cold War and sometimes a hot war with China. Here's the problem with India. It's a two-pronged problem. There's 50% tariffs on India. 25% of them is the reciprocal tariff because of unfair trade. 25% is the fact that India is buying oil from Russia. So start with the reciprocal trade tariffs. The problem is that India literally is the Maharaja of tariffs. It has the highest tariffs of any major country in the world, and it's in denial about that. It tries to tell everybody out there that that's not true when it is demonstrably true.
What's happening there?
I think this is one of the more underreported stories in Trump's foreign policy, and I'm really glad that you raised it. On a bipartisan basis, going back decades, the United States has worked to build its relationship with India, the world's largest democracy, a country that we should be aligned with on technology and talent and economics and so many other issues, and aligned with in dealing with this strategic threat from China. And we had come a long way on that. And now, in no small part, I think, because of Pakistan's willingness to do business deals with the Trump family, Trump has thrown the India relationship over the side.
The U.S. that India is buying crude oil from Russia. Now, this is hypocritical in a number of different ways. The U.S. isn't levying similar tariffs against China, which buys even more oil from Russia. And a large portion of the oil that India imports from Russia, it refines and then sells on to the European Union, which is supporting Ukraine. So why not beat up the European Union economically over purchasing this Russian oil?
In the past weeks has essentially upended that, and for a variety of reasons now sent India back toward Russia to grow closer to China and just shredding these decades of efforts to try and change that alignment.
Offer as a US citizen some advice to the officials that currently represent me and several million Americans. If you slap a 50% tariff on India, India is going to look elsewhere for trade partners.
It's Modi's first visit to China in 7 years. This is after the two countries have had strained relations over border disputes that they are now saying they can overcome. This summit didn't need to deliver headlines or big deals because it's so heavy on symbolism.
Trying to signal that if relations with the United States sour, he can turn further into Putin and Xi's embrace and away from the United States.
Okay, so there you heard it. Those are some of the US media reactions that have come in. Policy analysts as well as top Trump officials have now formally commented on India once again, as well as the SCO in the larger context of the meeting between Xi Jinping, Vladimir Putin and Narendra Modi. Let's also take our viewers quickly through how US media has covered the meeting in print. What are the headlines? in the United States of America. Let's quickly put this out on our screens. So Associated Press writes, Modi and Putin affirm special relationship as India faces steep US tariffs over Russian oil imports. Wall Street Journal writes, Xi, Modi and Putin project unity amid tense US relations. Chinese, Russian, Indian leaders pledge cooperation in a message to Trump. New York Times writes, smiles and clasped hands as Xi, Putin and Modi try to signal unity. And they've put out that viral photograph of the three leaders together from the summit, where they're not really a part of any formal setting at this point in time, but just meeting, it seems, pretty casually on the sidelines and seem to be sharing a laugh. New York Post writes, India's leader Modi cozies up to Putin and Xi Jinping at Shanghai summit after he was spurned by Trump. ABC News writes, Modi and Putin meet on summit sidelines as India faces steep US tariff. Washington Post writes, China tries to use Trump turmoil to unite leaders against a US-led order. Fox News is writing, India's Modi cozies up with Putin, Xi in a statement against Trump bullying. CNN writes, Xi, Putin, Modi share a laugh at security summit. On that note, let me bring in Ambassador Manju Seth with us on the broadcast, also Joyita Basu. Joyita, I want to understand from your perspective, firstly, because this is something that you and I, but mainly you do on a daily basis as far as headlines are now concerned. Most of these headlines, Joyita, want to, of course, indicate two things. That A, this is happening amidst the heat of the tariffs from the United States of America, and B, that there is a clear signal or a message to Donald Trump. That was the main focus at the SCO Summit. How true are these statements?
Well, first of all, we have to look at it in terms of, you see, at one level, this is not really true. Primarily because the rapprochement started sometime in November 2024 at Kazan. That was when the ice breaking started between India and China, and that was the first meeting. There was a handshake between Xi Jinping and Prime Minister Modi. So that was the start, and gradually over the months, India and China have been trying to normalize relations. Of course, there was this very bad experience that India had with China's, I would say backdoor involvement in Operation Sindoor, that particular attack and the terrorist attack and whatever happened prior to that, the military action. So you see, things were not okay with China. In fact, we are going to say things are not really okay even now. But this icebreaker started, and the process, I would say, accelerated, gathered pace. And what happened? In fact, we came to some kind of, I would say, there was some kind of a crescendo, if I can use that term, with Mr. Trump's weird behavior. I mean, the kind of stuff that he has said about India and whatever he has been doing, the whole India-US relationship seems to be coming apart at the seams, as a result of which it is but natural that the focus will be there on this particular summit in a big way when you have got the three big world leaders, okay, that is non-Western world leaders and three of the most important powers. They coming together and they are talking against the hegemony of any one particular power already. But although I would say that this has been said by Xi Jinping and Putin, Mr. Modi has not really talked like that. But the thing is that, you see, I mean, if this had happened in a normal I would say time frame, then I don't think there would have been such it would not have grabbed such eyeballs. But the very fact that so many things have happened in the interim from May to August, so it is but natural that it will gather the eyeballs, and 2 plus 2 will be made 4. And even though actually it need not have been the case, but it's but obvious the whole thing is being put in the context of Donald Trump's behavior.
Okay, Ambassador Manju Seth, bringing you into the conversation here, ma'am. We've just heard a few sound bites. So what's really the chatter as far as American media is concerned? So what is it that policy analysts, etc., are saying to American media? At the same time, we've also read now, I just want to once again quote the New York Times, which says, smiles and clasped hands as Xi, Putin and Modi try to signal unity. Their display of friendship with China was aimed at projecting an alternative to the US global leadership, even as serious differences remain among them. Given this headline, Ambassador Manju said that there was an attempt to project an alternative to US global leadership, which it seems that several policy analysts and political affairs experts, diplomats in America, are somewhere understanding that in a way, because of Donald Trump's administration in the past few months, he has inadvertently pushed some of his adversaries, being China and Russia, towards a strong strategic partner like India. Why is it that the Trump administration, Ambassador Manju said, refuses to really understand this reality, or at least acknowledge the fact that India is an important partner?
I think if you've been looking at the media reports in the last few days, I think there have been these double voices coming out of the US. One saying, literally abusing India and the Prime Minister, and the other one saying India is an important partner for us. Why are they doing that? We are better partners, etc., etc. And India should be standing with the US, not with the dictators, etc. So, all these kind of contradictory, hypocritical, double speak, let me say. Double statements are coming all the time from the US administration, which is very, very difficult to fathom, to understand. I believe that it is becoming, quite difficult to understand what is their thinking and what are they wanting to focus on. And is it all about, only tariffs? It doesn't look like that any longer. It looks like there are other reasons in the background, which they're not talking about. But this India bashing, PM bashing, and abusing, I think, is most undiplomatic and unheard of in general, unless you are your sworn enemies, then also I think in diplomatic language, or in the diplomatic world, you don't use this kind of language and this kind of signaling. So I think it is becoming quite, difficult to understand what is the thinking, what are they saying, why are they saying that? They want, and to have this, they're saying India's relationship or India does everything one-sided. But you know what, I think what the US also seems to be saying, either you listen to us, you better listen to us. There's no, there was negotiation going on. There's this, and they have, just abandoned the negotiations, the trade talks. Yes, India's red lines have to be respected. You have to, we respect yours. We're giving you, almost 0% tariff, as also President Trump has said. But somehow they did not want it. They wanted everything to be opened up. And as far as the agriculture sector is concerned, it is a very sensitive area. The dairy and agriculture sector, we cannot open it up and have no tariffs on that, because it is something which will impact the small farmers. We don't have, it's not an industry in India. It is, some parts of it are, at a bigger level, but by and large, the majority of people in this sector are, it's like, subsistence farmers, subsistence workers. So for us to
Okay, we seem to have lost that line with Ambassador Manju Seth, but I will come back to her. Meanwhile, viewers, that was of course American reactions, but we also have reactions from the rest of the world, including several other Western nations and the Middle East. The scenario in the US is what you've just heard, but in the UK and other international outlets, they've also been covering the summit. Let's take a look at some of what channels in Europe and the UK saw the summit as, and they've also now come up with a very interesting name for the gathering in Tianjin. Listen in before I show you some of the headlines.
3% of the global population, so very, very big and very influential indeed. Some people are calling it the axis of upheaval.
And now with this bonhomie between China, India and Russia, Mr. Modi is showing that he cannot be pushed into a corner by the US and is answering back, and that's what his supporters are saying.
However, again, in the words of Narendra Modi, 2.8 billion people are counting on them being able to sit down and cooperate with one another. And obviously, if China and India could increase their economic activity, well, the potential would be absolutely massive.
If Donald Trump believed his tariffs on India might make Narendra Modi think twice about doing business with Russia. Then seeing the Indian leader holding hands with Vladimir Putin, having a laugh with him and Xi Jinping, might suggest his plan has backfired.
Helpful validation for the Chinese leader Xi Jinping's long support of Putin. And with his Russian bear by his side, he then told India's leader, feeling the sting of Trump's tariffs, that with the world transforming, the Chinese dragon and Indian elephant.
Okay, so there you've heard it.
A bilateral meeting. Now, we've seen these two countries inch closer together, not just right now, but it happened late last year. If you recall, a couple of years ago, we had some border clashes between the two countries. And last year, they met to agree to calm tensions on the border. So that was step one, if you will. But just because tensions with the United States and India seem to be, the relationship seems to be on shaky ground, it's unlikely that India is just going to look east to China.
It's about creating a narrative. It's about saying that we stand firm. But when you actually look beneath them, it's very hard to find, they're not doing any economic deals. They're mostly trade rivals, actually, particularly China and India. All that really unites them is the American thing. So in many ways, the BRICS is this is like another part of that idea of gathering these kind of countries.
Okay, interesting there. Joy, the axis of upheaval is what some of the news channels in the UK and other parts of the world have now called this. Your thoughts?
Well, first of all, I don't like the term, primarily because the minute you are talking about Axis and Axis powers, I mean, immediately reminded back of Second World War, where we had the Allied powers and we had the Axis, and the Axis, and whenever, even later, whenever the West talks about, it's always axis of evil, axis of, now it is upheaval, axis there at the time it was Germany, Japan and all. So there is, I think I would say, a deliberate attempt to undermine this, whatever we saw at SCO. But at the same time, I agree with what the last gentleman talked about, that there is very little, I would say bonhomie, or there's a lot of discord between India and China. We know that very, very well. But the fact of the matter is that given the situation and given the times that we live in, very uncertain, I mean, why get into trouble with China? I mean, that is the simple, I think, logic we are operating on. If the two neighbors together can coexist, okay, for at least some time. And frankly, if you ask me, I don't see this holding beyond a couple of years, or maybe maximum 3 years, because there is a belief that the Chinese do not like Prime Minister Modi that much, and they will try to get the current government out of power maybe inside the next 3 years. Another problem will happen. So you see, everybody is playing their own game, and at the same time, but what the message, the problem that the West is creating is that the West is seeing this SCO summit as an anti-West gathering, but this is not. This is a non-West gathering, which even the BRICS is, and which, so this is the message that India has been giving throughout, that it has nothing to do, I mean, we are not against the West, which Russia and China are. So that is why no statement talking against Donald Trump or talking against the US came from India, which it came from both Russia and China. So we are making that difference, but the optics as such, I don't think the West is going to understand it, or at least when it comes to mass media. Say for example, I saw Fox News, there is this Laura Ingraham or something like that, one particular anchor, she is going hammer and tongs against India to the extent of stop visa, cancel H1B, I mean, throw them out, and these are the three people, these are the three countries. But Donald Trump, there's another person on Fox News, they're talking about, these are the countries and they should be sanctioned, they are ganging up against Trump. Are we? I don't think we are. I think we have been the most sober. It's just that we have refused to talk to Mr. Trump, and Mr. Trump has to blame. But you see, this is also at the same time what we are witnessing, and this is a little worrying, primarily because this is also kind of becoming a factor in US domestic politics. If you see the California governor, Gavin Newsom, who is likely to be the presidential candidate of the Democrats, he is looking at it as a failure of Donald Trump. He has used a photo or a video of the three leaders coming together in SCO, and he says, this is what Donald Trump has done. So the point is, you see, the minute they start talking about Axis, Axis reminds me of Axis, World War Axis and Axis of evil. I don't like the idea of India being painted as a part of that axis. But yes, all we are trying to, this is multilateralism. At least we as Indians, we need to hammer home the message, particularly to the West, that this is multilateralism. And this is more important because when in trade terms is, you see, when India looks east, everywhere there is a deficit, you know, all the other countries, and when India looks west, India is in a surplus. So you do not have any choice, we do not have any choice but to look west when it comes to trade. So we cannot afford to be painted as part of any axis.
Okay, very interesting thought there. Ambassador Said, before I bring you in, ma'am, just quickly some headlines that we want to go over. Al Jazeera has written, US trade war, India-China ties loom large at SCO Summit in Tianjin. BBC writes, China and India pledged to be partners, not rivals. Modi said that there was now an atmosphere of peace and stability between them. CNA has written, Xi to Modi, the Chinese dragon and the Indian elephant need to be friends, a sign of strategic rethink to deal with geopolitical vulnerabilities. The Guardian writes their view on Donald Trump in India. They say that this is a tariff war that has boosted China. To see Modi, Xi and Putin smiling and joking is to watch Washington's influence fade. Telegraph writes, Trump's double humiliation as Xi embraces Modi and Putin. Things are not going to plan. The Times has written, Xi criticizes bullying countries at SCO Summit with Putin and Modi. And India has often been the odd man out in the SCO. Modi, however, is at one with Xi on some issues. But interestingly, Ambassador Said, if I can get your thoughts on what Joyita has also just pointed out. How does India really then strike the balance? Because yes, there are global vulnerabilities at this point in time. We don't want to be bullied by any country. Certainly not by the United States of America, although they may think that they can do that. And there are several countries in the world, unfortunately, that are beholden to the United States of America till date, and therefore it gets the power that it does. But Joyita has an interesting point there as well, that when this narrative then starts of an axis of upheaval that is being created by China, including Russia and India, that's a pretty negative narrative to be involved in. How do we strike a balance in ensuring that we're not compromising on our own growth and on our economic journey at the hands of the US, but at the same time we give a stern message to any Western nation that, listen, you can't just come and dictate terms to us?
Absolutely, I agree with Joyita's assessment. Absolutely, this axis and all this kind of terminology really is a Western construct to put other people and to sort of put other people or show them in a negative light. So I think that especially has to be we have to be very cautious about it and not allow it to happen. And very rightly, they have been anti-Western, China and Putin to some extent, but we know that Putin has met, President Trump recently, and we also know that China is and Putin are also. China and the US are also in negotiations to try and find a solution to their differences. And I think India is the only one which has remained pro. It's not said anything against Trump. It's not said anything against the US, because it is a strategic partner. You don't treat strategic partners like this. But unfortunately, the Trump administration seems to think that strategic partner is a word. It's just a terminology. It's not anything on the ground, and they ought to just listen to us. Because he even said, there was either he or one of his advisors has said, just like Japan has come, Philippines has come to us, Korea has come to us. Why has India not come to us to do a deal? So I think this kind of language and this kind of insulting kind of, behavior and disrespectful, let me say. It's very disrespectful, and the US seems to think that it is well within its rights to behave like this. And I think they are mistaken. And I think that the earlier they understand that this is not the way to do diplomacy, this is not the way to conduct international relations, especially right now, the kind of people who are in the administration, in the seat of power, really, I think, need to know how to conduct diplomacy and how to conduct their relations. Because this particular relationship with India, and I agree, they say it is a very important relationship with a strategic partner in this, and the US and India, the both big democracies, oldest and biggest democracies, they should be working together. Of course, that's what we have been saying. We should work together. We have to. We have a lot of natural convergences. But this kind of behavior on the part of a very important partner, important strategic partnership, I think, on part of a country which is a strategic partner, I think, and many, it's a multifaceted relationship, and for them to act like this, and when you're partners, you don't go around bashing and demeaning the other partner. You may have the upper hand, you may have you may be the biggest power, you may be having a certain more influence in the world.
Yes.
But yes, you need partners, and when you have partners, you treat them like partners. You can't have this kind of, I think that is something unfortunate.
All right, on that note, we've completely run out of time, but I thank both of our guests for joining us to take this conversation forward. With that, we sip into a very short break.